All right, everyone, there are still those who haven't quite gotten over the last election. I don't mean like haven't gotten over like they're pissed about the result. That's half the population that voted. That's understandable. That happens anytime because a lot of people are partisans. But I mean like in a morbid sense. They're fascinated by the concept of an alternative timeline in which everything is magically delicious and wonderful because Hillary Clinton happened to win the presidency. I'm sure that there are people like among the Republicans. If Clinton had won, they would have done the same with Trump. They'd have been, oh, it would have been so much better, and Clinton's this and Clinton's that. It's sort of the way that U.S. politics works. Let's be honest. To be nonpartisan, we have to understand with a two-party dichotomy, you can look and maybe say one candidate's better than the other, but the lay people, the partisans themselves, they have those similar reactions. And I don't think that a lot of those really diehard Clinton fans, like the glass ceiling, the hashtag pussy hat resists sort of bullshit, I don't think that at this point they're ever psychologically going to get over the fact that their candidate who was coronated, pumped full of corporate steroids, bank steroids, and was considered a shoo-in by basically everybody under the sun, including some Trump fans, managed to lose to someone who was considered a running joke by the legacy media. They were lied to and given the rosy-colored glasses approach by the CNNs and MSNBCs that told them, basically, don't worry too much because Trump's 10 points behind. America will never fall to this the evil of populism, caring about the middle class is evil now. And so they've begun to fantasize to the point at which I think some of these people might be delusional. Now I'm going to read the title here, link in the description, archived of course. I'm just going to read the title of this because this alone is like the greatest form of comedy. Like they even had a website there, I don't know if it's still there, where every day they do a post and they like rewrite the news as though Hillary Clinton were the president or something. And it's like this sort of weird game that they play. Listen to this. Imagining the wonderful life Hillary Clinton would have been creating for America. What would Hillary Clinton have done? Her promises indicate she would have pursued policies like George Bailey, creating institutions that serve and help people realize possibilities so they can serve the world. Mostly her campaign boiled down to, hey, I'm female, hey, I'm not Trump, and I've got a D after my name. That was her main platform, and the secondary to that was basically, hey, we've got to smash the glass ceiling, and Trump is a racist. That doesn't create possibilities for people. Those are empty, vacuous slogans. Literally, make America great again is exactly the same when it comes to this. Don't get me wrong, that is a totally vacuous, empty statement into which you can put whatever sense of greatness you happen to agree with into that statement. Unless Trump has totally alienated you, he can be your candidate because of that. It's a bit of empty sloganeering. It has to be vacuous. It can't be substantive. It has to be short. It has to be terse. It has to be something people can project upon. It draws them in like a magnet because they seek to project over it what they want to believe in. A lot of Trump superfans ultimately have beliefs that are totally different than Trump. He's basically a business Democrat. That's the funniest part. it's absolutely hilarious. And then the actual, like the Democrats, some of these people, they are like business Democrats. They're not really far left. They're not really social justice warriors even some of the time. They're just partisan Democrats somewhere in the center left or something, and half the time they think Trump is the devil and Clinton was like a great person. And she's not. She's crazy. She was the one talking about wanting war with Iran. I disagree with what Trump is doing with regards to Iran beyond simply making tweets in support of the opposition of the protesters there. Any attempt to embargo or go back on the Iran deal, I don't support that at all. But I mean, that's one reason I voted against Hillary Clinton. She made it very explicit that that was what she intended to do, and much worse. She made it explicit that she intended to use wedge issues. I have hot sauce in my handbag, she tells the black crowd. I'm female, she says to the female voter. So she tries to break people apart into these divisive little groups that always nitpick after one another. Meanwhile, Trump's like, other than a nativistic style of message, which is basically, hey, U.S. versus not U.S., which I'm not sure exactly why that's considered racist. Unless you think that the United States is 100% of one race or another, you shouldn't think that. It's a nationality. It's a cultural block. It has nothing to do with race, per se. That's beyond that. All he's saying is, I'm going to try to make life better for everyone. You look at his tax plan. It's basically a populist tax plan. It basically is. Most of the help it's giving proportionally is going to the working and middle class, and also to people who are on the margins of poverty who still, for some odd reason, have to pay $10 a year when they shouldn't be paying anything. It's not going to the hyper-rich no matter what some idiot tries to tell you from CNN, because they're conflating absolute and proportional numbers. There's a big difference between an absolute figure and a proportion. Comparing two numbers together, but a ratio. But you're not going to hear that from the MSNBC. Maddow's not going to point that out and spend 10 minutes trying to lecture you on basic mathematics on her nightly slot or her other slot. This level of fantasy, though, I think when people say, well, it's almost unbelievable that we've got a president that's like Donald Trump, I think it's almost unbelievable you've got people with journalism degrees who are supposedly respectable, supposedly like mainstream, they're sane, they're totally not zealots, they're totally not fanatic and out there, and they spend their time writing what essentially is Hillary Clinton fan fiction and passing it off as legitimate, credible news analysis. Yeah, what kind of country are we living in definitely applies, but not because Trump is president. Look, 20 years ago, Trump's statements would have been considered normal and centrist. In fact, Democrats 20 years ago were saying much the same things on many tokens. It's just that before, when Bill Clinton said, oh, well, we've got to build a better border defenses and deport people who are here illegally. That's not acceptable. It's against our way of life, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, he never actually attempted to do such a thing. What they're worried about is that Trump will not just say it like a politician is supposed to by establishment standards, but that he'll actually accomplish it. They don't have a problem with the fact that he's saying it. Obama said it, Bubba Bill said it, Hillary Clinton said it like 15 years ago. They all said basically the same thing. It doesn't. Bush said it. The McCain said it. The Romney said it. Republican, Democrat, it's shit to them because they're part of the establishment. They talk a big game and then they never do anything. Trump has already made it clear, at least with tax reform, he actually did what he said he was going to do, which is actually a bottom-heavy ratio, again, over absolute number, tax relief program that now, in a de facto sense, has no choice but to be combined with deregulation and bureau slashing if you don't want massive amounts of new debt. And that, I think, over the next year is his next goal. Which will work. Trust me, it's going to be good for the country. It's not going to be problematic, and it'll raise his approval come tax time. And he knows this, and that's exactly why he chose to go after the money, which, I personally think he should have done from day one. Other than the wall, he shouldn't have fixated on anything. Taking credit for ISIS being degraded and largely wiped out in some areas, that works, even though it's not 100% U.S. involvement. It's also Russia, and oddly enough, it's Bashar al-Assad as well, now that he doesn't have pressure from a U.S.-backed FSA. But what would Hillary Clinton have done in these scenarios? What would her tax plan have looked like? It would have been a tax increase to pay for useless social programs that would not be efficiently administered because the government never efficiently administers anything. There's barely a bureau in this country that is efficient. There's barely any non-overlapping sub-bureau in this country. There's barely any social program that actually pays out to the little people the amount that it's supposed to and isn't squandered on a bunch of military spending or lining the pockets of a bunch of bureaucrats that don't even need to exist, or gets put into a slush fund. It's a nice corporate kickback for some politician. So that's part one of what Hillary Clinton would have done. What would she have done in the Middle East? She would have attacked Syria, probably. She would have continued what Obama wanted to do, which is arm the FSA, who are terrorists. There would have been more Fast and Furiouses down in cartel-laden Mexico. So people would have died down there, and the government would be giving them automatic weapons while Hillary Clinton pushes for gun control here. Now, the only thankful thing that would have happened is the Republicans still would have controlled the Senate and House. She wouldn't have gotten a whole lot accomplished. She would be a lame duck in her first 2 years. But then she would begin using the wedge issues she promulgated during the election to try to carve apart 51% of the population into her own side so that she could try to morally browbeat what essentially amounts to a very weak Republican Party into doing her bidding. A lot of these Republicans, we've seen it like with the Max Boot characters or whatever, They're so terrified of being called sexist or racist or some other stupid categorical term that has no relevance whatsoever and has been so overstretched it has no meaning. They're so afraid of getting these labels tossed at them for something that they said or a bit of criticism that they levied against the wrong political or activistic figure that they shut up altogether and will do the bidding of basically multicultural, diverse liberalism. Now, thankfully, that era would have, regardless of if Trump had been elected, the era would be ebbing away. In fact, there's a part of me that believes that if Hillary Clinton had won, the far right would actually be stronger than it is now. Because what's happened now is it was a very anti-establishment movement, but Trump is now the president. He is a politician. Despite having a populist, nativistic, and sometimes message, he is still fundamentally now part of the political establishment. He just does things, sort of marches to the beat of his own drum, prefers to scoop the media by tweeting, goes golfing a lot, and then passes a massive tax reform bill. Honestly, I don't have a problem with that. There are fairly good arguments to be made for the idea that all of DC should just go golfing every day and do absolutely buttfuck nothing. There's a pretty good argument to be made that we should cut their salaries and say, okay, you only have to work one day a year. Pass a budget, make sure the budget's a lot smaller each and every year. We'd probably get more accomplished if we did. I don't care if Trump goes golfing. The only funny part there is it is hypocrisy because he used to say that about Obama. Oh, Obama loves to golf more than be president, basically. And he does fundamentally the same thing. Although it seems that the majority of the time they're business trips, like he's talking to politicians and heads of state on his own golf course. It's a little bit of an odd style, but I mean, is it that much different from like Camp David Accord style stuff? Oh yeah, we're going to go and hang out and have more informal conversations, as opposed to sitting like in the White House, the boardroom, suits, and spit shine shoes and gilding everywhere. We're going to go to something a little bit nicer and more relaxing. Trump's idea of relaxing is not the rustic appeal of Camp David. His idea of appealing and relaxing is, hey, I've got the biggest swimming pool. It's huge. It's bigger than my hands. I've got the best golf course. It's better than the grass on Jeb Bush's wife. And that's basically how he does business, and who cares? Hillary Clinton was more formal. Definitely, her leadership style is more in line of what you would see with a Merkel. And she would have gotten along famously with Merkel. There'd be no president here to protect us from the possibility of PC bullshit from Western Europe, the Eurozone countries, seeping into U.S. tech as well. With the biggest protection Trump gives us in an ideological sense beyond, hey, money, basically. The biggest other protection, if foreign policy is off the table because largely Congress has usurped him on it, so he's not doing much in foreign policy other than shaking hands with Jinping and going to Asia a lot lately. The biggest other thing he can do is simply provide, because of his campaign style and the composition of his fan base, he has no choice but to be anti-PC. He has to continue that. I think that's great. That staves off the menace of Euro censorship a little bit more effectively, I think, than having a Clinton up there. Hillary Clinton, as well, as we've seen over the last year, has primarily blamed other people for all of her problems. Do you honestly think that the kind of leadership we need is a person of that particular nature? Oh, well, no, it was Russia. Oh, it was Nazis. It was female voters. It was the DNC. They're all responsible for my problems. And somebody who supposedly had a total meltdown on election, she knew that she had lost, and she didn't even come out until the next morning to address that fact. Podesta had to come out and address the crowd at the DNC's little Hillary Clinton would-be victory rally. What do you think she was up to that she could use? Oh, she was tired. No, she wasn't tired. She'd been campaigning anyway. That was an off day for her. She probably slept really well the night before. Oh, she was sick. No, that excuse, you can only use that so many times before it seems a little conspicuous. No, she was drunk off her ass and being belligerent, and they said, hey, we can't bring her out in front of the crowd right now. That's not going to look very good, because it's just going to justify everything Trump's voters have been saying about the Democratic Party for the whole friggin' year. We're going to wait, sober her up, and get 2 cups of coffee into her in the morning. Podesta, you go out, you're still mostly sober, you go out and tell people basically, hey, we got to put the horse out of its misery on this bullshit, but we've got to do it tomorrow, and deftly avoid mentioning the real reason why. That's essentially what happened. I'm sorry, I do not think Hillary Clinton would have been a better president than Donald Trump. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I think that by now we'd probably be in a major conflict because she would have done the same thing, especially with Syria, that Obama was doing. That's dangerous. The Russian Air Force is in an area and you want to say, okay, well, we're going to start bombing and running our jets over there too. Can you say catastrophe waiting to happen? And there are people who think this is a good idea, like, oh, you can't do diplomacy with Russia. They control the U.S. government now. Oh no, Red's under the bed. So, yeah, so basically screw diplomacy. So basically screw us. We're going to have World War III and there's nothing we can do about it at that point. You've got to try to normalize things. They're not even letting Trump do normal diplomacy. He's given up. He's there, so, oh, yeah, okay, we'll have new sanctions. Okay, yeah, Putin is being an ass to me, basically. Yeah, there goes our last best hope for staving off the return of the Cold War. If the mid-atomic era sci-fi flicks and 80s music come back, I'll be happy about that. Unfortunately, I think it's not going to happen, and we're just probably going to have the specter of nuclear annihilation for another 20 or 30 years. Thanks, I get to spend the rest of my younger days, saying, oh, well, at any point, an atomic bomb could hit my house, so, fuck it. Why do I even care? That's about all. Peace out.